Hey, it's me again, and I'm making another video for you guys, whoever wants to hear it. This is the beginning of my story of finding God. Like I said, I told the story backwards without meaning to, but that's just how the videos came out, and that's just the way God wanted it. Woo! Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Um, anyways, so now it's gonna be the beginning, and this, it was like, how do I describe it? Because this major event happened in my life, a major accident, and I'll explain the details. But this major event happened, and um, it was like God was knocking at the door for me, saying, "Open the door." And like, let me in and answer the door. And that's just, and I learned a lot more from it too than just that. So I'll start at the beginning. Back on March 19th, 2016, I was 6 months pregnant with my second child. And we were having my gender reveal slash baby shower. I wanted to have the two parties in one. And so what's becoming popular for gender reveals is, I don't know what they're called, but they're like these canister things that you fill up with pink or blue powder and then you blow it up, and it tells you what you're having. It'd be a boom, big reveal. So that's what we were gonna do. So the moment comes to blow this thing up, and me and my husband are, not kidding you, about 50 yards away. We have people off to my right, about the same distance, and we're standing there, and boom, it goes off. Well, instead of pink or blue powder, I see the color orange. And I don't know why, I'm confused, but I turn around and I start trying to walk. And I can't walk. I'm, stumbling around. I'm trying to grab onto my husband and hold on to him because I can't walk all of a sudden. And I'm like, man, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I was like, my leg hurts. And I look down at my pants, at my leg, and there's black singe marks. And I lift up my pant leg, and there is a hole in my leg about that big, right next to the knee joint. Just, that big, just a big old hole. And I fainted for a split second. And I could feel myself being lifted up from people lifting me into the truck, because of course this was out in the middle of nowhere. The closest hospital is a small one, and we get to the hospital. Now, my husband was in the military, and when he saw my leg, he instantly ripped off his belt and put on a tourniquet because it was just bleeding. And mind you, I'm 6 months pregnant with shrapnel in my leg. And we get to the hospital, and the nurse comes out with a wheelchair. And I hear her and my husband talking, and all I hear her say is, well, she's got to come out somehow. I personally know the woman, the nurse. She's not the nicest of people. Forgive me for saying that, Lord, but, I just, at the time, I wasn't very happy. But I just picked myself up like this, and I just kind of hoisted my leg and threw myself in the wheelchair, and I was like, come on, let's go. And the tourniquet came loose, and I just remember there was a trail of blood behind me in the hallway up to the exam room. Well, we get to the exam room, and it's starting to kick in, like, this is hurting. This whole time I never cried, because I believe I was in shock, but other people that were there that witnessed it, it was about 20 people there that witnessed it. Some people say it was like, no, I was just so concerned for my child, crying didn't matter. But I say it was because I was in shock. But also that too, I did think that, like, I was thinking to myself, whatever stress I feel, the baby feels, so I can't be stressed right now. So I'm like, okay, this is really starting to hurt. This is starting to hurt. And the doctor and the nurse The doctor said to my family, he goes, this is the type of injury I would see when I was in the military overseas. And I don't know where he was overseas at, but he's a great doctor. I really like him. And they tried to figure out, I guess, what medicine they had in stock that was safe for me to take for being pregnant. And they give me something, and it numbs, it takes a little bit of the sting away, because it just, you could feel like the metal just burning inside of you, and burning inside of my leg. And so they tell me that they can't treat me there because it's too serious. They're going to have to send me to a trauma center downtown. So I have to be life flighted, because by ambulance it would take almost 4 hours to get me there. So they life flighted me. And life flight is not fun. It's pretty scary. Your bed is, your stretcher, it's narrow. It's all narrow in there, and it's very cramped, and your feet are right at like the door to the helicopter, and you're just praying that they latch that door tight enough. And we're flying, and that's when I started to have my moment with God. Like, I was left alone, and I was just telling God, it's like, I don't know why you've done this to me. Take my leg, take my leg if you have to. I don't care. Just don't take my daughter's life. That's another thing too. On the way to the hospital, I found out I was having a girl. I was saying, please don't take my daughter's life. Modern medicine now, babies can live outside of the mother's womb at a pretty young age. So please save mine. If that's what it takes, take my own life. I didn't care. So just take my own life if that means saving my unborn daughter. And we get to the hospital, and mind you, I got there in like 30 minutes or so. My family didn't get there till like 2 hours after, because they had to drive and got stuck in traffic to get there. So I was there by myself for a while. And I had a team of different doctors and nurses and things like that come in. And, sorry, what is that? Excuse the interruption. Anyways, so I have a team of doctors coming in and talking to me, and it's hard to say what order that they were coming in at, just because it's been a while since all this happened, and I didn't write any of this down. It's off of memory. But at one point, one doctor comes in, an orthopedic doctor, and he's talking about, we're trying to figure out the best way to fix your leg, but we have to do some tests first. Okay, so I don't know what kind of tests they're going to do. They didn't do, I don't remember them doing an x-ray on me. Maybe they did. But they were just trying to figure out how to get that metal out of my leg. But they needed to know the damage that was done. And then another doctor comes in, and it's an OBGYN team. And I understand that doctors don't always have the best bedside manners, but they have a very difficult job. And, sometimes they have to deliver bad news, and there's no other way to put it. But when she said this, reality really kicked in. And she said, after the surgery, we'll see if your baby's still alive. And that just really stuck. And, I was alone in the hospital waiting for my family, and I get those words, and I just was trying to process them the best I could. And then when my family does make it there, my husband and sister-in-law stay with me in the triage. And where the fracture is at, where the shrapnel hit my leg, I'm sorry if the phone's gonna be loud. If you can, it's kind of hard to see, but there's the scar right there, and then it's deformed, like it's deformed right there, like it's just like goes down, and you can feel where a crevice of a hole. I'm sorry, it's hot out here. A crevice of a hole was. Okay, hold on. Let me put this back down. Anyways, so where where the injury was at, there's a ligament right there that gives you the simple movement to just move your leg up, forward, and up, down. And like to control a gas pedal doing this with your foot, right? Well, they need the x-ray, or yes, they did an x-ray. They had to have, now that I remember it, because they're telling me that there's just this hole, and then just a thin sheet of bone was holding that ligament. And if I tried to bend my knee in any way, it could fracture it, and then I lose that ligament, and then that's pretty much no more leg, from what I got from them and the little bit of research I'd done about it. Could be wrong, but this whole time I just got the gist. It's like, I might lose my leg, and I'm just going to accept that and move on as long as my daughter lives. And what was actually the worst part of it all was the test they had to do to check to see if I still had synovial fluid in my knee capsule joint. So they had this nurse or a doctor, I'm not sure what it was, maybe he was like an intern that had to do it, but he just, kind of told me what he was going to have to do, but I could tell he wasn't lying to me, but he was holding something back. And I think it's because he knew how painful it was going to be. And I don't know if they usually sedate people to do this, but if they do, they couldn't sedate me because I was pregnant. But I will say there is a pain worse than childbirth. And I've had 2 kids. And to me, I've experienced pain worse than childbirth. The shrapnel in the leg. And then it's just, because it just burns and burns. Like you could just feel that metal burning into your bone. And then to check the joint, he got the needle, and he had like 2 big bags of saline fluid, or boxes of saline fluid. And he fills up, the syringe of fluid is big. It's a big syringe. I mean, it's not that big, but it's a big syringe and a long needle, and he injects that needle into my knee joint. And within about 3 or 4 seconds, that's when the pain started. And I was looking down, and I could see my knee joints just swelling up. But no fluid was leaking out of the hole in my leg, which was good, I believe. And he is just filling it with saline, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, just like in agony. It was pure torture. I'm just screaming, and I'm holding on to my husband, just grabbing onto him and crying. And I'm very kind to hospital staff, but this pain was so unreal, I almost punched him in the face. Not my husband, but the doctor, the nurse, because it just was so terrible. And I kept begging for him to stop, and he was like, I'm sorry, I have to. And I was like, no, please. And I remember looking up in front of me. I was in, triage room, and people were in the hallway, and this hospital was overpacked. It was a very busy weekend for them. A lot of people were injured because it turned out to be on the last weekend of a big, festival. And I remember looking up, and people are staring at me with wide-eyed and like mouth open, staring at me. And then a nurse comes in and just closes the double doors to the room, just closes them. And as he's injecting this fluid in my knee, in my mind, I started screaming, I'm broken, I'm broken. And that is where the PTSD kicked in. And then after that, I told him, you cannot touch me anymore until I'm completely sedated and we're going to do the surgery. You're not allowed to touch me again. And, once they did all those tests, then they had to wait to find a room for me. So I was in the triage area waiting for 7 hours, 8 hours or so in the night. They moved me up to a room, and then they decided to schedule my surgery for the next day at 5 o'clock. And thankfully, I had an amazing nurse in the hospital, and she told me, she demanded that they moved my surgery up because she wasn't going to let them have a pregnant lady go without eating that long. Because you can't eat before surgery. The surgery was very quick, like less than 30 minutes. As soon as I woke up, I looked around the recovery room, a new recovery room, and I found a nurse, and I said, I need a monitor. And she got the monitor to check for the baby's heartbeat. And she was checking, and for a second there, we couldn't hear a heartbeat. And then I said, well, my daughter likes to sit low in my stomach. She likes to sit low, check lower. And she did. And then we heard a strong heartbeat. My daughter was still alive. And I just praise God for that. It was a long recovery. I had to have a walker because I was a fall risk. I just don't see how soldiers can go through injuries like that. I mean, the physical torment's one thing, but the mental torment's another. And now my daughter's about, she's going to have her 4th birthday here pretty soon in August. And, she's full of piss and vinegar, as we say in the South. Meaning she's a wild child, if you don't know what that means. Full of life. And the lesson I learned from all of this was, God was knocking at the door saying, let me in. It's time to know who I am. And it put other things in my perspective, like as being a mother. Don't be so materialistic and worrying about your registry and you didn't get this, you wanted that type of baby product. Just be grateful that they're alive and healthy and with you every day. Just look at them and cherish them because they are little angels, even if they drive you crazy sometimes. So that's just the beginning of my journey. And if you want to know more about my life with PTSD, I'll make another video about that. Just to give more insight of like what a person goes through with PTSD. I'll give my journey because it also led me to God, but the PTSD takes you to a dark place, a very dark place, very dark. And it's not only mental, but there's a lot of physical elements with it too, that really cripple you, And now I understand why people with PTSD see the appeal in suicide. I don't mean to talk about that. I'll save that for another video. That's a very sensitive subject. I'm not saying I'm suicidal, but I see why people feel like they're being pushed to that point now, because I've been in their shoes. So I just hope you enjoyed this video, because God told me to, tell it. And I just pray everyone has a blessed day and just, learn from my crazy experience and just cherish your children. So God bless and amen.